Hello, everyone. This is Professor DePaulo. Welcome you back to Psych 265 Fully Online Research in Psychology. And this week, we're going to be talking about how to write the title, the abstract, and the reference section of the APA manuscript. So we've been working on throughout the semester data from a survey looking at how social connectedness is related to both physical and mental well-being. And so that's the study we're doing as a class, and that was done online. And we're going to write a title based on that study that communicates the results or the purpose of our research. So the title should be about 3 lines down from the top of the page, below the header of the page in your word processing, Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So we're going to just space it 3 lines down. It could be 3 or 4. Right? I'll put it 4 lines down from the header. And I'm going to call the title of this manuscript The Role of Social Connectedness on Physical and Mental Well-Being. Now, all the important words have to be capitalized. The first letter of all important words have to be capitalized in the title, and you don't need to capitalize things like of and on or and, or even the, if the was in the middle of the title. But since the is the beginning of the title, I capitalize it. And then we want to center this, and we want to make sure it's in 12-point font, and it should be in either Arial or Times New Roman, because those are the common, writing manuscript fonts. So I'm going to put in Arial 12. We want to make sure it's centered, so I hit the little centering button. And everyone should have access to Microsoft Word because it comes as part of your free Microsoft 365 package you get from the school. So everyone has Microsoft 365, and if you want to make these edits in Microsoft Word, you have access to it. If you want to make these edits in Google Docs, you can do pretty much the same thing. So the role of social connectedness on physical and mental well-being, not a really super interesting title, but it does communicate what the manuscript is about. And you should be coming up with your own title. So do not give me the exact same title I'm giving you here. This is an example title. You should be coming up with your own title. Don't make it longer than, say, 15 words, because then it gets really complicated. And when you're looking through research and you see this really long title, you probably are not going to read through everything, right? If it sounds like too complicated or too wordy, jargony, etc., you're most likely going to skip it. So keep it to the point. Make sure it represents what the research is about. Make sure it's not overly long. So come up with your own title. There's no right or wrong answers. This is kind of boring, but it does do the job. It does communicate what the manuscript is about. After the title, you're going to double space, center it, your name, and your degree if you have one. Put my degree here. And then the institutional affiliation. So Borough of Manhattan Community College. You don't want to write BMCC because people don't know what BMCC is. Right? We know what BMCC is, but if you publish it, no one's going to know what that means. And then we're going to put City University of New York because that's also part of our affiliation. Make sure you spell it right. So there's your basic title and your name, author name. If you have more than one author, you'd put and, or you'd put comma if you have 3 more authors and an and before the last author. But you only have one author here. Institutional affiliation, you're done with that part. Go back to the header. And in the header, up at the top of the page where it says header, we want page numbers to the right, and we want the short title to the left of each header on each page. So the short title is the first 3 or 4 words of the full title. So you take the full title and you take the first few words of the full title, and that becomes your short title. Usually it's around 4 words, could be a little less, usually not too much. You don't want to write the full title as your short title. It's got to be shorter than your full title. So in order to put the page numbers in correctly, we start by inserting page number. I want it at the top of the page, and I want it to the left. Now, ideally, we want the page number to the right, but if I select page number to the right, so number 3 here, what it's going to do is it's going to push the page number to the line below the short title, and I want the short title and the page number to be on the same line. So I'm going to pick page plain number 1 here first to the left, and then I'm going to put in the short title. The role of social. I can put connectedness. It's a little bit longer, but that is my short title. And tab over here, and you got 1 over as your page number. And as you keep going down page from page, you're going to see that the short title and the page number is going to carry over to the subsequent page. And so if I go to page 2, you see that the page number has changed to page 2, and it keeps going ad infinitum. We used to need to put the words running head at the top, but the APA 7th edition has changed that. So now you don't need the words running head anymore. You just need the short title, like I'm doing here. So come up with your own title, right? And that's the title page, and then you're done. If you wanted to push this back down 1 more space to make it more further down in the page, you can do that. This is just kind of a stylistic thing. So it doesn't have to be 3 spaces. You can push it down another space if you want. As long as it has the information here. Now, if I were submitting a professional manuscript, I'd also put an author note, which includes other relevant information about the author and my contact information, etc. My email, my phone number, and all that stuff. But since we're not doing that, we're not submitting this, we're just going to write out the title page this way. So you're done with the title page. Now we're going to move on to the abstract. So let's take a look at a research article and look at the abstract to see what other people are doing in terms of developing an abstract. So I've taken this article, which is relevant here to us, fostering social connectedness, which is basically what our study is about. And this involves adolescents and adults with autism, qualitative analysis. So this is an interesting article. It's related to autism, even though our manuscript's not about autism, it's connected in a way, and we can look at the abstract and sort of see what they're doing here. So here's the abstract. Autism spectrum disorder, ASD, impacts 1 in 44 children in the US. Common characteristics are marked deficits in communication and social connectedness. As autistic children approach adolescence, there is a lack of interventions available to them. Right. So look at how it starts out, right? Mentoring can provide adolescents with a relationship that facilitates social connectedness with another person who has shared life experience, filling a gap in service. So you have 3 or 4 sentences here that are talking about what autism is briefly and why it's important to link it to social connectedness. So for our study on the mental and physical problems associated or mental and physical connections associated with social connectedness, we're looking at things like depression and anxiety, and there's research out there that talks about how depression and anxiety can be influenced or made worse by lack of social connectedness. Now, this is autism, so we're looking at sort of the far end of the spectrum, right? Like not specifically autism, but we're looking at the most extreme end of social connectedness. So children with autism have profound deficits in social communication. So we're not expecting something similar in our study because we're not looking at participants with autism per se. But we're looking at, is your level of connectedness to your your friends, your family, your school, your whatever group you belong to, right? Is that related to negative psychological and negative physical health outcome? And the answer in general is yes. In most of the research, there is a connection. So the first two or three sentences of our abstract need to talk about what is the problem, which is social connectedness. We're looking at social connectedness. Why is it important to look at that? Where do you find that information? In your introduction that you wrote already. Because in the introduction, you looked at what social connectedness is and why it's important and what it's linked to. That's the literature review. So you need those first two or three sentences of the abstract to mention why we're studying what we're studying and why it's important. And it's very important. It's even more important after the pandemic. Because what did the pandemic do? Isolated everyone. Yes, kids were not in school. They suffered for that, but they also suffered because they weren't able to connect with other people, with other kids. They were home. Everybody was isolated. And that social connection that's it's a very important part of early development. And so you didn't have that during the pandemic for in some cases, schools were shut down for 2 years. Those are critical years that children did not have that interaction with their peers. And is that going to have a long lasting impact? I think it is. And I think we're seeing it already. So, those first two or three sentences, what's the topic? Social connectedness, its relationship to, you know, depression, anxiety, somatization, academic performance, and why it's important to study it. You're going to two or three sentences on the introduction, right? Now, if you look at what they do after here, they're talking about autism mentoring, right? So their study is about mentoring and why is mentoring important. And here's the methodology. They developed this mentorship program to provide autistic adolescents a meaningful relationship with an autistic young adult. Via participation in focus groups, mentees, mentors, and parents of mentees shared their experience of participating in an after school youth mentoring intervention, and themes were developed from an open coding procedure. So that's their methodology. Now, our methodology is not as complex as this. We didn't develop a program or an intervention. We just did an online survey. So all you have to do is put one sentence for the methodology that an online survey was conducted that examined, social connectedness and its relationship to anxiety, depression, somatization, etc., academic performance. Right? That's one sentence. So you only need one sentence of that, and you could put the sample size in there too if you want. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can put the sample size of the survey. So you got to go back to your method section, find the sample size, and put the sample size in that. So one or two sentences of method. So I said 2 to 3 sentences that are based on the introduction, 1 or 2 sentences based on the method of our study, and then we're going to follow it up with the results and the discussion, right? So what were the results here? Results showed that this autism mentorship program was associated with helping mentees find social connection within their mentoring relationship and among the group of mentees. And they reported mutual benefits and social connectedness. So we have some results too, right? So we showed correlations pretty much for everything except for academic performance. Right? But we showed negative correlations between social connectedness and anxiety. Social connectedness and depression was negatively correlated. We didn't find any relationship between social connectedness and academic performance, which is in contrast to previous research. Why? There's a lot of reasons why, and that was in your discussion section. So you should have 1 or 2 sentences for the results of our study, right? And then the discussion, what does this research mean? So if you look at this abstract here on this autism study, they're saying perceived benefits of the program include improved academic performance and suggestions for future programming. So they're saying it's a promising program that provides social benefits for adolescents who may have few options. They're saying their program is good and it worked. What are we going to say about our this in our discussion that social connectors is very important and that it does seem to reduce levels of depression and anxiety, right? But there's no direct link to academic performance. And you may mention the limitation, one sentence on the limitation of the study, right? You do not need to put data in here. So you don't need to put the stats that I put in the results section. Leave that in the results section. Don't put any stats in here. If you're going to put any numbers, it's just going to be the sample size. And that's it. Now, your whole abstract should be 150 words or less. So you want it at 150 words or less for the abstract. 2 to 3 sentences introduction, 1 to 2 sentences about the method, 1 to 2 sentences about the results, 1 to 2 sentences about the discussion, what the results mean. And you could throw in limitations in those last 1 or 2 sentences if you want. 150 words or less for the abstract. So people should read, researchers or people looking at research, they should read your abstract and say, hey, this is an interesting study and this is what they found. I want to read more about it. And when I look at abstracts, I skim the abstract in less than 30 seconds and I decide whether I want to read the article or not. So 30 seconds, skim the abstract. Does it look good? Does it look interesting? Is it relevant to my research? Yes. Okay, I'm going to read it. No, move on to the next. There's so many articles out there that you can only spend 30 seconds reading the abstract. So you want to make sure that you're really direct in communicating the importance of the research and what you actually found, right? You don't need to exaggerate things, but you want to be very direct in 150 words or less. So that's the abstract. This is a hard part of the manuscript to write. This is always written last. And, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for something solid that's relevant to the study we did as a class. And then that's the abstract. Now we're going to talk about the references. So the references is very easy to do. So let's go to Google Scholar and I'll show you how I do it. So here we're in Google Scholar. Let's say I'm looking at social connectedness and health, or actually let me put social connectedness and academic performance. Let's say you use this article. You know what article is used for the introduction, right? And maybe some for the discussion. So whatever research articles you use, you have to put them in the reference section. Anything that's cited needs to be in the references. So let's say I use this article here, third year college retention and transfer, effects of academic performance, motivation, social connectedness. Let's say this was the article I used to link academic performance to social connectedness in the introduction that you wrote. If I'm using this article and I cited it, I need to put it in the reference section. The easiest way to do this, there's a whole bunch of ways to do this with reference managers and things like that. But the easiest way to do this is you go here in Google Scholar and you go to Cite, where you see this quotation marks, you hit Cite. It brings up a citation, various citations here. You want APA style. So you just click this, you copy it, Control C. You go into Microsoft Word. Let's go into a new page here. We're going to type the word references at the top. You're going to center references like that. Make sure it's 12 point. Make sure it's the same font. So I'm going to put it in Arial because I want to keep it the same font as everything else. Okay, and you're just going to Control V paste it like that. Now, it's not formatted correctly, so what I have to do, I have to format it. I need to double space everything, so I'm just going to go here and double space. So you see this little up and down arrow here, that's line spacing. We want 2, like that. That's double spaced. And then I need to have the second and the subsequent line. So The second and subsequent lines of each reference entry must be indented. So I'm going to do this, copy, delete it. I'm going to do a tab over, right? Tab once, so I indent it, and then paste it. And I'll just tab over this line like that. And there's your reference entry. And you're going to do that for each of the references. Right? So references like that. And then the references need to be in alphabetical order by author last name. So Alan is A, so that's probably going to stay at the top here. But let's look at another article just for doing it again here. Let's look at social connectedness and depression. Okay, here's an article. Let's say I use this article in the introduction. I cited this article. I need to put it in the reference section. So I'm going to hit Cite, click on APA, Control C, copy, Control V, paste. And then I just need to indent. Okay, let's indent that second line. So I do that, and then indent, and then I tab over, right? There's your second reference entry. Now they have to be in alphabetical order. So you're gonna have all your references. You should have a minimum of 5 references because I asked you to find 5 articles, one for each of the 5 hypotheses in the literature review. So you should have a minimum of 5 references here. They need to be in alphabetical order by author last name. Okay. And this is because Alan here, A is before W. But as I add more references, I got to make sure it's in alphabetical order. The whole thing has to be in alphabetical order by author last name, first author last name. And then I'm done. So I did the title page, the abstract, the reference. Now the title page and the references should take you 20 minutes to do. Right? There's not much going on there. You're just gonna, copy and paste here like this. Even if you didn't get the article from Google Scholar, you just type the article name in Google Scholar and you'll find a citation that you can copy from Google Scholar. Makes it very easy. There's other citation managers. There's RefWorks and there's some other free ones. There's I think Zotero, Zotero is a reference manager. You could download them. They save your articles to your computer or they save them online actually. And so that it helps you organize your research. So you have all your articles and you just click on the reference and it shows your article. Those are all nice, but you only have like a handful of articles here. So you don't need one of those big citation managers, reference managers. But in the future, RefWorks or even Zotero, I've used both of them before. And they're useful. They're helpful. And so I suggest you play around with them. RefWorks, I don't know if we have access to that as a student at BMCC, but you definitely have a Zotero as the reference manager. But for now, you can just put into Google Scholar, copy and paste the references, format them like I did, double space, make sure the second and subsequent line is indented of each reference entry, and then put them in alphabetical order by author last name. So once you've got your title page, your abstract, and your references, save it as a PDF, one PDF document. So save all 3 into one PDF document, and then you're going to upload here onto Brightspace. So you're going to go into Brightspace, and where it says here, title, abstract, references, you're going to upload. Right, here's the due date. You're going to upload as a PDF, and that's easy enough. You've done it before. Add your attachment as a PDF. I'm then going to grade them, get them back to you, and then after that, you're going to work on the revised manuscript. So the final paper is going to be the entire paper, right? It's going to be the title page, the abstract, the introduction, the method, the results, which I wrote for you. So I've done the results section. All you have to do is copy and paste it. Copy and paste the results section to the final document. The discussion page after that, so discussion section, and then your references. You're going to upload the entire manuscript in the correct order as one PDF for your final paper. So you'll see a link here for final paper. I don't know if I have it up yet. I have it right here. So due dates, revised final paper, upload it. That's a PDF by the due date. And then that should be the paper you made changes to. So as I grade your submissions, I'm giving you all kinds of suggestions or telling you what to fix. All your changes should be reflected in that revised final paper. That's important. And then your final paper grade will be half the rough draft grades, right? The intro, the method, the discussion, and then what we're doing now, the title, abstract, references. So half of that will be your final paper grade, and half of your final paper grade will be the revised paper. I expect you to make the changes I'm suggesting. Because this is how the peer review process works. I mean, when I submit a paper to a journal, I have it reviewed, and then I have people make comments and basically mostly complaints, right? They're not patting you on the back saying good job. They're saying do this, fix this, change this. That is the peer review process. So we're doing the peer review process as I'm the editor, basically. I'm the peer reviewer and I'm giving you feedback and I expect you to make the changes that I suggest. And if you don't want to make those changes, then there needs to be a rationale why you wouldn't make that change, right? But I'm trying to help you improve your papers and submit a quality final document. And that's going to be 30% of your grade. The entire paper grade, combined rough draft and the revised paper, is 30% of your final grade. So please take that seriously. If there's any questions, let me know. You can always email me. I have office hours, of course. So just let me know if you need to meet during one of these times because I have lots of advising as well. We'll set up a good time to meet on Zoom. Okay, that's it for today. Bye for now. Hopefully this helps you, and I'll see you online in the future.